It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. You can find me at Opperman Investigations and Digital Forensic Consulting through my website, emailrevealer.com, or just contact me directly at oppermaninvestigations@gmail.com. The archives are free. Go to Spreaker.com. There's a chat room. You get an email notification when we put up new content. I do a live show every Friday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you go there and look up our guest today, Patrick Bergy, we have an archive show with him over there. We discussed his many books. He's written 3 books. Victim of the Swamp, How the Deep State Destroyed the 40-Year-Old Private. Another one is Operation Shadowgate, The American Awakening. And then Operation Shadowgate, The Hacking of Mankind's Shadow. Now, you can find Patrick Bergy. His website is freedomstream.tv. He does a broadcast. He does a podcast every Thursday night, as many as he can do. irnbroadcast.com. That's the Patrick Bergy podcast. You can find him on Patreon, help support his work, American Awakening at Patreon. And he's also on Twitch. PFC _ Bergy, Bergy. Mr. Patrick Bergy, are you there?
Yes, thank you very much.
What a long intro, right? Man, it's getting too long. I got to cut that back. Cut some stuff out, man. Remind the audience, man, who is Patrick Bergy?
So, I was the whistleblower in the Shadowgate documentary, and that was a documentary that was based on my a key tam that I had filed in D.C. federal court around January of 2020. And right after, so August 14th, this past Monday, was the 3rd year anniversary when Millie Weaver, a contract journalist with InfoWars, was uploading the documentary Shadowgate, and her brother, and her husband were all arrested on a fabricated, sealed indictment that was later thrown out as being fabricated. Literally, so while they're uploading a documentary based on election influence, using social media psychological warfare, basically the same things that were exposed, not even basically, these same things, same people, same organizations that were exposed in the Twitter 8 files is what I was exposing in August of 2020 when Millie was arrested while uploading that. So nothing was ever done about that. Millie and Gavin were later in November were invited to D.C. by Patrick Byrne, Rudy Giuliani, some others, and they ended up becoming, key figures in the dissemination of most of the misinformation and disinformation that you see Trump being accused of disseminating. Right? They were the ones really behind the scenes working with Rudy and these others. I was invited up there. I went there as a whistleblower. I submitted my affidavit to them. I wasn't there as some sort of asset trying to reverse the outcome of an election. Most of the stuff that I witnessed there, when it came to the PCAPs and other things, I told them was garbage or unverifiable, or wow, I'd be careful with that. That doesn't sound normal. And later on, all of those things that I had claimed and called out ended up being accurate and true. So that would be the elevator version of Patrick Bergy.
I always say the soccer field. We meet our kids, we're playing soccer. Who are you?
Right.
Yeah. But no, where were they getting this information from? This stuff by Hugo Chavez, and where was that coming from?
funny story about the Hugo Chavez thing and the Venezuela thing. Found out later on when when Lev Parnas did a Twitter Spaces with Tory and Milley, that the former president of Venezuela was one of Rudy Giuliani's clients with Giuliani's lobby firm. Go figure.
Wait, which one though? But that was Guaido, right?
Which one? I can't remember which one it was.
Well, you know something, man. You know that coup that just took place, that attempted coup that was put down by the angry fishermen. Rudy's clients were all over that coup attempt.
These guys in their DC lobby firms making millions of dollars. Influencing policy that our, elected officials are actually elected to do. I'm wondering why we pay so much to these guys to do stuff that our elected officials are supposed to actually be doing, and in the process providing transparency for us. But you don't. You have the military-industrial complex. You got all these retired generals that basically run D.C. They run the D.C. lobby firms. My old boss, Jones Group International, General Jones, he was, I worked for a small family-owned business that called Dynology that his family owned for 8 years. And he was the subject of my whistleblower claim back in 2015.
You mentioned Lev Parnas. I've been talking to Lev Parnas, and he says that he was on a plane heading to Vienna. First of all, he said that the way that Hunter Biden got that job at Burisnov was because through Rudy Giuliani's agent over in Ukraine that got Rudy speaking gigs over in Ukraine.
Would not surprise me at all.
Then he says the Russian FSB was telling Hunter, "Hey man, we got drugs for you, we got hookers for you over in Kazakhstan. Head over there." Then they were filming him, and that's some of the material we found on the laptop. What do you know about that?
I know that, I have spoken to Lev Parnas. I reached out to him because basically I saw him being attacked by the same people that I was working with, and they turned around and attacked me when I didn't want to play their BS games. Yeah. There, see, you don't have to edit that one, and
thank you.
I can abbreviate, right?
Yeah.
And I reached out to Lev. He ended up putting me in touch with Denver Riggleman, which I was, as a former, basically a subject matter expert in data analytics. I was on the server side, not the client side, but my background was in I was an SPSS and a past SW. Administrator. Anybody in data analytics knows that was like the go-to IBM analytics software back in the day. So I really, I was like a colleague, basically. He was a contractor, and we were in the same field. But then, I did like an hour. I spoke to Denver about an hour and a half, and part of my there were several other people on the phone. And a lot of my conversation, or some of it, went into the fact that I had received a litigation hold notice from attorney Abby Lowell, Hunter Biden's attorneys.
Okay.
But I had also gotten set up by this guy, Aaron Soroka, who was purported to be a journalist working with like the Daily Caller. And but he apparently was also working with Kevin Morris, who was Hunter Biden's attorney, his other attorney, the one that paid like the $2 million IRS bill.
Yeah,
and then and they had offered me. I have it in text messages and DMs, right? He was like, "Hey, you should talk to him. He'll pay you over like over $10,000 for your information." And I'm like, "Why would he do that? All my information is in these affidavits, and I'm freely giving it to you right now." So I'm like, you guys just want to try to set me up and discredit me by saying, "Oh, he's taking money from Hunter Biden." No. So I turned him down, got away from him. And then I found out that Denver was getting paid by that same attorney. And I'm like, so I got pissed off at Denver saying, why would you, knowing that I had this engagement, and this attorney was literally in an affidavit that I submitted to the Department of Justice as potential witness tampering. And I'm like, why would you set me up? Why would Denver set me up like that? And why is someone that is supposed to be like this fact witness on this stuff, why is this person getting paid by somebody connected to, by Hunter Biden's attorney? So I separated myself from them. I don't think really Lev liked that very much because he's the one that introduced me, and I respect Lev, but I'm like, why do you guys do this? I hope Lev's not taking money from Kevin Morris. I don't know, but that's the first thing that comes to my mind. And if he is, how do you trust the information that you're getting is going to be all the information, or if it's just going to be information that favors, the person paying them?
What a swamp.
I don't make a lot of friends. I don't make a lot of friends, Ed.
Yeah. It's just... one more thing that Lev says, though, is he was on a plane with Sean Hannity. They were going to Vienna to pick up one of the loaded laptops, and Rudy was supposed to be on the plane, but he canceled at the very last second, and then Lev was arrested.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Hannity was arrested?
No, not Hannity. No, Hannity was on there to do an interview. He had nothing to do with the laptop. Just happened to be on a plane on another matter, Mr. Hannity.
Okay. But Hannity was there, like, on the plane with Lev when Lev was arrested?
The trip was Hannity, Rudy, and Lev. Rudy canceled at the very last second. Lev gets arrested. Hannity's untouched. He goes over to Vienna to do some kind of an interview.
Yeah, well, Rudy completely set Lev up with Millie and Tori. These are assets that are... I know Millie is under an NDA with Rudy.
Oh, really?
And they've been paid by him in different ways. Not to mention, Rudy's now pushing their CUCS device. And...
what kind of device?
They have a thing called CUX, QUX.
Yeah.
It's a funny name, right?
A porn?
It's supposed to be, like the safe network for you to be able to enjoy a new social media experience on, but with a box that you pay like, hundreds of dollars for, and then a monthly subscription that you pay for. But they're better than Facebook or Mark Zuckerman because they never actually explain that. They just say that these guys are bad, you should use our service, and you'll be safe. But I'm like, everybody involved with their service has been involved with selling data. For example, Rudy Giuliani's client, Mike Tremarco. Mike Tremarco was the owner of Dish Networks, or one of the founders, or he was deeply involved. Maybe the CFO of Dish Networks, very high in Dish Networks. Well, Dish Networks. Rudy and Mike Tremarco were in the process of suing Alexander Nix for like $60 million. Nix was the owner of Cambridge Analytica.
Right.
So I'm wondering, what was the $60 million for? Was that for, data that he had sold Nix from Dish Networks in the same fashion that Facebook got fined $1 billion for? I don't know. Seems like people would want to ask these questions because they were fined $1 billion for, using your data to build predictive models to reflexively influence how you vote. I don't think Democrats or Republicans like that. And that's kind of what I've been trying to speak out and expose.
And that is very important to understand.
Fair election.
Yeah, that is your field of study that you did in the military that you're famous for.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Or infamous, maybe at this point. But,
yeah, there you go. Patrick Bergy.
I was just the IT guy, man.
We're talking to Patrick. Let's get some stuff here. Patrick Bergy. We're talking to Patrick Bergy, freedomstream.tv. That's his website. irnbroadcast.com. Every Thursday night with a podcast. His Patreon is American Awakening, and you can find him on Twitch. PFC_Bergy, Bergy. Several books. Victim of the Swamp, How the Deep State Destroyed the 40-Year-Old Private, Operation Shadowgate, The American Awakening, and Operation Shadowgate, The Hacking of Mankind's Shadow. We have to have you come on one day, just for like 2 or 3 hours, and really pick your brain.
Would love to.
I know. Well, listen.
This is my life.
I know.
can talk this all day.
I hear you, man. But no, real quick question, and then I want to get into all the new indictments. Your amicus brief you attached to the search warrant over there in Mara Lago, and what happened with that, and then also to you're attaching some new amicus briefs to the current indictments, and also your testimony before the January 6th committee. Before we get to that, do you think it's possible that they're getting this crew of Sidney Powell and Flynn and these characters with this information about the satellites and Italy and firefights and all this stuff, right? This stuff, man. Could they have been getting that from the Russians?
Well, the satellites and the Italy stuff, that was all tied to Alexander Nix, right? So they were targeting Alexander Nix. Who was they? Well, Rudy and the other people that were tasked to do it by Trump from that letter that Trump was handed that Christmas Eve by that woman that had this information about them stealing the election in Italy. And she hands Trump a letter, and Trump's like, oh, my God, I got to put Rudy on this. Well, put Rudy on it. He's got a $60 million financial connection to the guy that they're investigating.
Oh, my God.
You think maybe for transparency we could find somebody not currently suing Alexander Nix for $60 million? Maybe, I don't know. And Sidney Powell, right? Yeah. I sent her a letter, an email, when I was in D.C. with our team up there, saying, because I saw her on stage with Lynn Wood and Ali Akbar. And Ali Akbar, I was calling him out as a terrorist.
Ali Alexander or Ali Akbar?
Ali, same thing.
Okay.
He was Ali Akbar until apparently it wasn't like politically correct, and then
that wouldn't be popular amongst those red hats. Yeah.
So it's hard to launch a Christian movement named Ali Akbar. Yeah. So he changes his name to Alexander and launches a Christian movement that ends up basically being, accused of inciting the events of January 6th.
Well, and also, too, he admits to luring little boys and trying to hit on little boys on the internet.
Yeah.
He acknowledges that.
So, the face of MAGA, which people go, oh, why could you be mad at MAGA? I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Look what you guys have allowed to happen. These people don't represent my values. And Sidney Powell, she knew about him. She responded back to me, hey, thanks for letting us know. We didn't know about his past. But then that was over a month before January 6th.
Wow.
And they still do nothing.
Wow.
So these people, they knew that the election had been won. They knew wait.
You're saying they knew Ali Alexander was hitting on little boys a month before January 6th?
Well, no, they knew that Ali Alexander was running influence, was basically a terror. I told them of his criminal background, his background with other things, how he attacked Shadowgate when Milley was arrested. He attacked me, called me a junkie veteran. I'm like, really? I'm a whistleblower. What, if you have a question about any claim that I made, please feel free to challenge me on that. Ask me about it. I actually provided evidence of all my claims in Shadowgate. But he was he was a former asset of Karl Rove. He said he worked with Cambridge Analytica, and which I was exposing in Shadowgate. So he attacks it, and I tell them that. And they acknowledge it, and they're like, wow, thanks, we didn't know that. But then they continue to give them a platform. These people knew that Trump had lost. Stone knew that Trump was going to lose even before the election. And why was he going to lose? Because Stone realized that after they won, Trump won in 2016 because of the shenanigans that were with the data and the predictive analytics and the social media psychological warfare that was used by Roger Stone, Steve Bannon, and these others, Cambridge Analytica, and that put Trump over the line, right? And he won. But then right after he won, and by the way, all they did was they kind of stole all of those ideas from Obama, who was doing it back in 2008 and 12. Actually, I'm sorry. We were doing it for McCain in 2008, Dynology, right? Obama's national security advisor. Then in 12, Obama was doing it. Then Facebook caught on and said, hey, you can't be using our data like that. And they shut down all the APIs. So the Democrats are like, oh, now how are we gonna cheat to win? We'll have to just play fair. But then Bannon came around and said, hey, we could set up this Cambridge Analytica thing. We could get people to give us their data. And, and then once they allow us authorization to have their data, we can grab all of their friends' data, right? And so that's what Cambridge Analytica did. That's what they were sued for $1 billion, put out of business, and found guilty of. So all of that, those resources and networks were taken down, shut down by, actually people connected to Tremarco and Giuliani, right? One of the people involved with that was this professor. I can't think of her name right now. But she was like a friend of Mike Tremarco's, who was also involved with the Cambridge Analytica, with the British news firm that exposed him. So Trump knew, Trump, I'm not saying Trump, I know that Roger Stone knew that that they were going to be hurting in 2020, because now not only did they lose Cambridge Analytica, but my old boss, General Jones, as chairman of the board of Atlantic Council, went and partnered with Facebook to restore election integrity worldwide and to combat fake news, quote unquote, right? So the guy that I built the ShadowNet for, which was designed to destroy the integrity of elections, is who Facebook tapped to partner with to restore the integrity of elections. I always just found that really fascinating, right? So Stone and those guys knew that they weren't going to win, because not only was their tools to cheat taken away from them, it was reestablished, rebuilt formidably against the Democrats against them. They now controlled every post that Trump made. They were able to shadow ban everything labeled MAGA, right?
Yeah.
Tell me that didn't have an impact on the election. Of course it did. Everybody's wondering, Trump's like, oh, I can't, they won by 10 million votes. That's never happened before. No shit. And those are exactly the numbers I would expect based on the command and control that they had over mainstream media. Hell, the former vice president of Jones Group International sits at Fox News right now as the one of the chief White House correspondents. They have assets all through the media. They control the social media. He lost because of that, not because of the voting machines. But I will add, Scott Bennett, right?
Yeah.
Scott Bennett had the Democrats' playbook. The Democrats knew that win or lose, Trump's, the Republicans were going to go after the integrity of the voting machines, right? Scott Bennett had their playbook from one of the highest people in the labor union, ACLU, right?
Okay.
Or no, not ACLU, the labor union, right?
Yeah.
And he had their playbook.
AFL-CIO.
And they said, AFL-CIO. And they said, and so everything that they had in that playbook that they said that we were going to do, we did. even though Scott's got the playbook there in D.C., handing it to Byrne, handing it to Flynn, right, saying, wow, you're doing everything that they anticipated you're doing. Hey, and by the way, if they're anticipating that you're doing that in a playbook that they actually wrote out, what are the odds that they didn't infuse some fake, voting issues? Because knowing that you're going to bite on it, take the hook, take the bait, right? I mean, if they knew that it's how we were going to behave, it would be irresponsible of them not to bait us. And so we fell for every single thing that they wanted us to do in December. And you can ask Scott on that. He'll back you on that. And he'll back me on that. And so, we knew we were going to lose. Once we did lose, these guys were like, we need to change the outcome of the election because we don't like the results. And I'm like, as an American, that's jacked up. You don't do that. Losing sucks, especially when the people that you lost against cheated. But our country depends on the sanctity and the
peaceful transition.
Transfer
Otherwise,
of power.
Yeah.
And maybe fix the problem. Maybe expose what they were actually doing. Maybe help me as a whistleblower expose my boss who was putting all of these partnerships together, who were putting all these assets together, who actually had the software, the means, the motive, and opportunity to alter the outcome of an election. Because why? Because that was his frickin' job doing it overseas. I think, according to news arguments, I can't reveal anything classified, but read the news on what these guys were doing and what their jobs were. Flynn, Jones, McChrystal, that's what they did.
Okay, and everyone also to go back to the archives, find the first interview with Patrick Bergy, because we go over a lot of this stuff there too as well. Now, Patrick, the last time I talked to you, you had inserted an amicus brief into the Mara Lago case. What became of that? Has anybody interviewed you that you brush in?
It was kind of cool because right after that, like the very next day, Patrick Byrne came out in an interview. Patrick Byrne came out like just doing a live video where he starts out by saying, it may turn out that the raid on Mara Lago had something to do with me. Okay. Well, that's exactly what I put in my affidavit,
right.
which forced him to come out and say that the next day. And Patrick Byrne, we know he's a former CI for the FBI multiple times. Yeah. Pete Santilli had a field day with him in an interview he did not long ago saying, it's okay if you're a CI, just let everybody know so we don't just sit there looking at you like a road cone when it comes out. And which I laughed my ass off, one of the funniest interviews I've seen. So people know that he's been involved in all of this. He was involved with Maria Butina. Yep. But he never gets. He begs to get arrested and can't get arrested.
That's right. He's not named.
He's not named
he wasn't indicted, and he's not even named as a co-conspirator.
I really feel bad for him. Right? He wants so bad to be named, but that's what you get with these immunity deals when you're giving information to them.
Okay. So what became of that? Did the FBI, DOJ, the prosecutor, did they come in and talk to you?
No.
Yeah, isn't that amazing?
It is, but it isn't because I submitted that pro se, right? And I'm nobody. I get that. Broke dick PFC. I don't think you have to edit that. Yeah. That's actually okay. And, so I'm a nobody. But one thing I noticed that when Hunter Biden filed that with the DOJ, he had an attorney file it for him. And you know what? The DOJ paid attention. I don't think it was so much because it was Hunter Biden. If he had just broke out a few lines, smoked some crack, and wrote down an affidavit and submitted it to even being the president's son, I think the DOJ would have went, and we aren't touching this, man. But when an attorney hands it to you, you got to do something. So the nice thing about this is I actually have an attorney that I've known for actually several years now who's actually one of the attorneys involved in the Texas lawsuit against Lynn Wood.
Okay.
So we've got that bonding moment there.
Why do you think Lynn Wood wasn't named in this latest indictment?
Why do you think?
Okay. The obvious reason. Okay.
Trying to save his ass.
Yeah.
Patrick Byrne was going to turn his plantation into a pig farm. Think of what the DOJ would do to it. They'd bring back slavery on it.
So now you just recently, now you have an attorney. You're doing another amicus to insert yourself into this latest indictment. Now, you're talking about in 2 of the indictments you have information.
Yes.
What are they?
Actually, it's going to be what I'm doing right now is he's going to be submitting these into the subcommittee on the weaponization of the government, and that one actually is going to include the recommendation that Matt Gaetz be removed and an ethics thing charged on him.
Wait! You're recommending that Matt Gaetz be removed?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I walked up to Matt Gaetz while Millie Weaver was still in jail. And by the way, Shadowgate wouldn't have even need to have happened. Matt Gaetz has had my information since January of 2019. And he's very close to Roger Stone's. Well, Shadowgate comes out, and I go up to Matt Gaetz outside of Congress, and I'm like, Matt, remember me? I'm the guy, with the ShadowNet. I gave you all this stuff. And I said, Millie Weaver's been arrested. Have you heard about Shadowgate? And he looks down at his phone, looks up at me and says, girlfriend's calling, gotta run. And he literally ran from me. And so I'm like, well, you piece of crap. So this guy Alpha was he was in a Twitter Spaces a while back. Matt Gaetz was, and Alpha asked him, "Hey, what about that? What about the arrest of Millie Weaver and Shadowgate and the documentation that Patrick Bergy brought to you as a whistleblower?" And he's like, "Oh no, there's no way I'm going to be talking about Shadowgate in this public space." He's like, "You've reached my limit." And I'm sitting there going, "Reached his limit? You mean freaking? You might have to beat that one. Freaking, Jewish space lasers is not out, but my sworn affidavit and the arrest of an American journalist is apparently over your limit."
Why
right?
do you think he's untouchable, Matt Gaetz, that he skated right through that big investigation?
Because of Stone. Because of the influence that he had. He hired Stone as his PR guy, and Stone was the one that called for Millie to be fired, right? So before Millie was even out of jail, before she could even defend herself, and I'm not sitting here obviously defending Millie. I've made several very accusatory claims earlier, but before Millie Weaver's even out of jail, Roger Stone's calling for her to be fired. Why? Because of the claims that I made about his old partner, Paul Manafort, right? And this is actually, I've seen from several witnesses, a tactic with Roger Stone where he will go after. He doesn't go after him. He uses assets like Jonathan Lee Riches or Matt Gaetz. So I'm just saying, I'm trying to go and expose my claims as a whistleblower before before that subcommittee, which calls out Roger Stone for firing Millie Weaver, who was instead of actually investigating why she was arrested. Was this politically motivated? Because this was a journalist. I don't care what you think of this person. Yeah.
Because you two don't get along that well, right? You two have kind of a beef, right? You and Millie?
Yeah, no, we do. We do because, they kind of went towards, working with General Flynn and Patrick Byrne and these guys. I was there with them watching the same things that they were, and I'm like, listen, these guys are just as crooked as can be. They don't want election integrity. They want to overturn this election. Yeah. I said, I want nothing to do with these guys. And, and then Millie was they were looking at money for funding, for backing cucks. And I'm like, no, I don't want. And so I spoke out about that publicly, and everybody got ticked off at me, and there you go.
Okay, we got about
But,
15
you know.
minutes left, okay? And then I'm going to beg you to come back, okay? We got 15 minutes left, okay? And what's in your amicus? What do you have new to share us, and what's going on with it?
Well, it's been updated with information like that. It's been updated with information involving that journalist I spoke to you about, Aaron Soroka.
Okay.
It's been updated with the Hunter Biden's other attorney, Abby Lowell. Abby Lowell sent me a litigation hold notice, right?
Yeah.
How did he get that information? Well, I was told by Abby Lowell's attorney that was working with him, taking my information, that Merrick Garland himself, after receiving my affidavit at the Department of Justice, reached out. My affidavit exposing all of this reached out to Abby Lowell and told him about my affidavit, which in turn I ended up getting a legal notice by Abby Lowell. I still, to this day, have not been contacted by the Department of Justice for the freaking affidavit that I sent. Apparently, my affidavit was warranted them giving it to Hunter Biden, but didn't warrant them actually coming and investigating my claims or interviewing me.
Amazing.
What's up with that?
Yeah.
And this is freaking Garland. And by the way, that claim was made during a recorded statement. So all anybody has to do is get that recorded statement from Abby Lowell, which probably won't be hard, right? But, if we could get him in a lawsuit, if DOJ used the same tactics on Hunter Biden, on the Bidens as they did on Trump, they could probably get that freaking information.
Well, what I really found amazing, too, is in the Devin Archer testimony, he starts bringing up John Kerry's son. Nobody wants to talk. Mm-hmm. He's doing the same exact thing. Yeah, he was partners. Yeah. No, we're not interested. Move on.
Well, think about what he actually said, the most important thing that nobody has even mentioned yet.
Okay.
And that is, what was Hunter Biden doing at the same time that I was working psychological warfare contracts, DOD weapons contracts, basically, for General Jones, Obama's national security advisor and the former NATO Supreme Allied Commander, right? Okay, so they're making money. At the same time, from like 2007 to 2010, Hunter Biden, according to Archer, was profiting from selling the military like ballistic vests.
Really?
What other things were the Bidens profiting from selling as to our military, right? So these guys, he's the vice president. He's supposed to be either keeping us out of wars or winning wars, right? So should the person responsible for either keeping us out of war or going into war actually be profiting from that?
Well, yeah, and the partner was the Secretary of State. The partner's son was Secretary of State.
There you go. So everybody's looking at like the Ukraine thing, and that's bad. And they're looking, look at China. China bad. All these things, right? Yes, they are. But go back to 2008, and you can actually find contract fraud, right? Because there's no way that ethically they should be able to do this. Oh, wait a minute. No, they had Obama's White House attorney signed off on that stuff, right? Well, who was Obama's White House attorney?
Oh, no.
Greg Craig, the guy that got busted with frickin' Paul Manafort for doing deals in Ukraine with their lobby firm.
Oh, by the way, you know who was partners with that? Podesta was partners with Manafort in those deals and were totally untouched.
Yes, they were on the board. Yeah. They were on, and with Jones as well.
Amazing.
General Jones. So people need to wake up. People need to see that the stuff that I was exposing exposes a much broader systemic problem within our government than even election fraud. If you can believe it, right? You would think, wow, that destroys the core of our democracy. Yeah, it does. But how are they paying for this fraud? Well, they're paying for it by stealing your data, selling your data, making these deals, doing weapons contracts while you're supposed to be keeping us out of war. right?
Yeah.
That's how they're funding the things that they, and then they turn around and we develop these applications as weapons of war, and they use them against us to influence the outcome of elections or to influence policies in D.C. and to make billions of dollars for themselves in the process. Not what could possibly go wrong there, Ed.
Patrick, do you want Trump to win this next election?
I think it would be horrible if he won, because it would just be more chaos.
Yeah. And you think he's guilty of everything he's being charged with?
No.
Oh, no?
I think he's probably guilty of willful blindness, which is kind of by, definite, it's a definition of guilt.
Yeah.
He's known Stone way too long to not know that Stone is like a completely, morally and ethically bankrupt human.
Okay, that's a good question. Now, how come Stone isn't named? CIA?
That's a good question. I think, but they did say that others will be named, and they haven't received my information yet.
Oh. And when will
Not
that information?
At least the Fannie Willis.
When will that information be available to the Opperman Report readers?
Well, as soon as I finish it up,
I'm gonna start driving over there right
and
now.
send it over and send it over to my attorney.
Yeah.
He's going to file it for me. So, my attorney and none of my claims actually accuse. In fact, my claims actually state that as a contractor, my personal knowledge on situations like this, he would not be told. You would never tell. If you are
so
short
true.
time as a contractor, if you talk about the stuff you're doing with the prime, you always go through the program manager. You don't jump their heads, or you're short for that business, right? But that's plausible deniability. But plausible deniability could also be, in my opinion, willful blindness. But he wanted to win. He may have truly believed the stuff that he was being told. A lot of people do. He's like an 80-year-old man.
Yeah, I know, but Patrick, when you're being told this stuff about satellites and firefights over in whatever that was in Italy, CIA's firefighting, when you're being told that and you're the president, don't you have other sources of intelligence that you can rely on?
You would hope, but in his mind, all of the other intelligence agencies, and he's probably not terribly wrong, are corrupt.
Yeah.
So, it's like, who am I going to believe? Well, that's on the intelligence agencies for allowing their reputation to be put lower than Rudy Giuliani and Sidney Powell.
What about that general? He was really, really old, and he was saying that he had information about this firefight over in Italy. Does he believe it?
Yeah. I don't know if he believes it, or I don't know if, which he may, because somebody like Tory or other assets, right?
Yeah.
That are, trained in IIA, psychological warfare. They may have fed him that information. It may have looked pretty good, and he may have believed it.
What do you make of Trump is now in Iowa, and he spent the whole day with Laura Loomer?
Gotta love Loomer. Millie was wearing Loomer's shirt when she was arrested.
But
look for one report. Show me one report that the great investigative journalist Laura Loomer or Laura Logan ever did about the arrest of her friend and colleague Millie Weaver. Right? Now, maybe she just didn't hear, right? Or maybe she didn't report on her friend and colleague's arrest while uploading a documentary called Shadowgate because she was working for Roger Stone. He was one of the key figures in her campaign. And if she turned on Roger Stone, she's screwed. So did she save her own ass to not upset Roger Stone, who had just called for Millie's firing based on my claims as a whistleblower? What a coward, right? In my opinion. Why did she do that? Shadow, why did she do that?
And what is Stone's motivation in all this?
Stone's motivation? Well, he's been running D.C. lobby firms and dirty tricks for decades. His motivation is freaking greed and power. It's all it ever is with these guys. They'll tell you anything you want to hear. They'll turn around and admit that they lied.
How come Bannon's not named in this?
Good question.
He's up to his neck. And what about people? What about Gates? What about Gates? What about Bobert? What about Marjorie Taylor Greene? How come they're not named in this? Or do you think there's another wave coming?
I think there's probably another wave coming. They're already juggling 17. Or you right? So
what do you mean?
They're already dealing with basically the list of people that was used to take down the World Trade Center and attack us on 9/11. And they're just two terrorists short at this point.
No, they got 19 in this one too. Maybe it's the same 19, right? The same 19 passports.
There you go. We're right there. They got the same amount of terrorists it took to basically destroy our country before.
Yeah, and one of the same guys that involved Rudy was over there at the first crime of the century.
Oh my God! and Carrick, right? Yeah. No, that's sad. That's sad.
How come Carrick's not named there? He's testifying. He's singing like a canary right now, right?
Yeah. And why do people just believe everything that they say like they do? Because, Carrick was standing right next to George W. Bush saying, darn it, there are weapons of mass destruction. We'll find them. Well, they found them, but every single one said made in America and had a receipt tied to it to Donald Rumsfeld.
Yeah, but Patrick, you know the whole story about Lawrence Ray, right? The Sarah Lawrence pimp dad.
No.
Oh, dude, man, that was Bernie Carrick's best friend. He paid for his wedding. He was the best man at his wedding. They were best friends coming out of Carrick's mouth himself. Lawrence Ray went to Sarah Lawrence College to live in his daughter's dorm room and started pimping out her daughter's friends. Okay, for $8,000 a day. And when he was best friends with Bernie Carrick, the day Bernie Carrick on 9/11 says, no, we're not going over there, we're going over here. His best friend was Lawrence Ray, this ex-CIA meth head pimp that was pimping out his girlfriend at that time when he was married.
Yeah.
That's the crew.
Well, does it surprise you?
That's the crew.
Look, I just did, about 2 weeks ago, I did a small segment on my show about this, one of the leaders of the Proud Boys in Texas, right? And I'm not just in the Proud Boys. Hell, if you go up into Bergy land up in Michigan, where I grew up in farmer areas there, you're gonna find most of the Bergies are probably freaking Proud Boys, or So listen, this is my blood I'm talking about, but I don't like it when people take advantage of them. And this guy, right? He's one of the head of the Proud Boys in Texas. I just played a deposition that he did because he's almost certainly, if you look at the evidence, almost certainly he ended up killing this guy who was beaten to death in his home. But the guy during the deposition literally answered the question of why, as a 40-year-old man, he had an 18-year-old boy living in his home that he was not related to. And the guy's like, well, I needed some extra money for hunting. I'm like, hunting what? 18-year-old boys? So it's like you got the freaking Proud Boys, out there running around saying, LGBTQ is bad, gays are bad. And you got the leader of the Proud Boys,
Stuart Rhodes,
a 40-year-old man living with an 18-year-old boy.
Yeah, Stuart Rhodes was a swinger, and so was his spokesperson there.
He was banging my last attorney. That's why I fired her.
Stuart Rhodes.
Because Michael... Yeah, he was banging Kelly Rhodes.
Yeah, I know his wife. I know his ex-wife, Pretty Atlanta's son.
Well, no, but Kelly Rhodes,
the
attorney now, she's actually getting transferred to a mental prison until she's mentally stable enough to go on trial for,
January 6th.
Her role in January 6th. But she was also the one that tracked down Millie's mom. And got Millie's mom to sign a confession stating that the claims that Millie was arrested for that were based on claims by her mom were all made up. So they're all tied. Yeah. They're all tied back to this small group of basically little like social media influencers, little IIA assets that are working contracts for larger people like InfoWars. I sat on InfoWars and said that to Alex Jones's face. And, he didn't like that, but he didn't dispute it with me either. When I was there on his stage, he attacked me after I left his stage and said he was never going to talk about it again after he fired Millie Weaver. These people are such cowards. I don't know why any patriot would listen to them. But you know why? You know why they listened to them? Because they were targeted. They were targeted. They were a group of people that Bannon called, Cambridge Analytica's Bannon, called the neurotics. They were the ones that they were targeting data, right? So if the algorithms, after they scraped your social media, after they scraped all of your other information, 5,000 different data points, and built these predictive analytics on you, they determined whether or not you were going to be one of Bannon's neurotics.
Paranoid, gullible, angry.
Yes. A patriot. Someone, who yes, a Christian, right? Why? Christians believe in something that they can't see, feel, or touch, right? You look at all of these characteristics, you put them together, you target these groups of people. They did it masterfully, right? And they still do. And these people, and they're like, like I said, you got a guy named Ali Akbar running around, fathering a Christian movement after he changed his name to Alexander. I'm sorry. That's just retarded to me.
Patrick Bergy, we're out of time. Patrick Bergy, Bergy, freedomstream.tv. That's his website, freedomstream.tv. irnbroadcast.com every Thursday night. His Patreon, support Patrick Bergy, is American Awakening at Patreon. His Twitch, and not a Twitch. Twitch is a thing you can watch like on a TV. It's like a YouTube. It doesn't have a Twitch. Okay, so his Twitch is PFC_Bergy. I'm going to have links to all his books because you got to understand the guy goes back. He's an expert on his data mining stuff, okay, from the military. That's where he comes from. Victim of the Swamp, how the deep state destroyed the 40-year-old private. He's older than that now. Operation Shadowgate, the American Awakening, and Operation Shadowgate, the hacking of mankind's shadow. Patrick Bergy, thank you so much, man. We'll be in touch, okay?
Thank you, Ed.
No, thank you, sir. Good night.